Hey crafters, I'm Daniela with DD's Art Workshop. If you like staying on a budget, DIYs, and upcycling, this channel is for you. For today's DIY, we will be making an owl burlap wreath. And believe it or not, I've never made a ribbon wreath before, so this was a little challenge for me. These ribbon burlap wreaths look a little intimidating because of all the loops, but they turn out not to be so bad after all. As for the wooden owl, I actually found it at one of my Dollar Trees, and I really loved it because I love owls, but they also carry other figures as well. And the reason I always mention Michael's is because it is down the street from my house, so it's always my go-to, along with Dollar Tree and Target. Anyways guys, let's jump right in, and as always, don't forget to push that like, to subscribe, and find me on Instagram and Facebook. Let's jump right in and let's get crafty.
As always, I will list materials used, paints, and some links in the description below. We will start with this wooden owl I found at Dollar Tree. They also carry other figures, or you can try to find at any craft store. We will begin our design by using some thin paint tape. For our checkered look, we will give the middle of our owl. And the ruler helped me make the first tape lines straight. And as you can see, as I tape, I'm untaping the middle tapes since those are just to space out my lines. Now I'll go ahead and do the same thing, but this time vertically. Okay, now I will start painting with some chalk paint, which by the way should be what you're using because it will work better with this tape method. The first color I'm using is Grotto in the brand Folk Art. Teal is one of my favorite colors, so this was a very good color choice. And as I always do, when I'm doing a painting, we blow dry for faster drying results. Remove your tape slowly and carefully. The paint shouldn't lift up. The chalk paint works great with this tape technique. Moving along with our checkered design, I'm now applying the tape to the blank white spaces that look like vertical lines. Our second color is burnt orange, and this paint is simply acrylic paint because I did not have it in chalk paint. These seem to smear just a bit when lifting up the tape, but that's okay because we can just paint over it later. And once again, let's blow dry. We will remove our tape, and now I'm putting some strips of tapes on top of the orange squares. We will paint more orange squares in the same burnt orange. You can definitely use a different pattern or more than two colors. This is just the design I chose for my owl. Blow dry, remove tape, and we can go ahead and paint our last squares in Grotto. Checkered designs are so popular right now, so play with the colors of your choice to match your fall decor. I liked this burnt orange because it's similar to the burlap ribbon I will be using on my wreath, and well, the dark teal I loved because I love teal. Okay, let's go ahead and add a design to the rest of our owl. I will be adding a little bit of hair on top of his eyes with a pencil, and some lines on his side, which we will paint in a bit. I found this great black acrylic chalk paint at Dollar Tree I will be using for his eyes, and this little sponge, also from Dollar Tree, is the perfect shape and size for his eyes. Now for my owl's wings, I'm using a brighter color in medium yellow in the brand Folk Art to bring some pop. And with a ruler, I'm simply making some lines for a fun design on the outside of his eye, and I will be painting these in a bit. I chose to make the first color in white, and I will paint the second color in black. Since I'm already using white, I decided to make some circles on the wings to make it fun. I'm painting two of the side lines on my owl in oatmeal acrylic paint. The second color will be in Bavarian, which is like a light yellow. As you can see, I painted around my owl's eyes in a light teal, which I actually should have done first, and I'm going over his eyes just a bit. And I'm doing his little feet in medium yellow. I had a paint marker at home, so I'm adding a little design on the white circles. And with gold, I'm outlining my checkers. I have already added a little burnt orange around my owl's eyes. Now I'm going to add a little feathery feel in black to the outer part, like owls have. I should have added oatmeal paint before the black, but no problem, I'll just add it now. While that dries, I'll outline the sidelines of my owl in a paint marker. Now I'll go back to the feathery look around my owl's eyes in black. And I'll do the same in burnt orange. Once dry, you can seal your work with the sealer of your choice for extra protection and so it's long-lasting. Let's move along and make our burlap wreath. You can find most of these materials at Dollar Tree or your craft store. I'm using about 3 burlap ribbons measuring 5.5 inches wide and 15 feet long. I'm folding in fourths and inserting a zip tie through the ribbon. Let's turn over our 14-inch wreath so we can tie our zip tie. Zip tie to either of your first outer or first inner circle of your wreath. And I cut with some scissors here, but later I will be using some wire cutters. Okay, let's turn our wreath over and get started on our loops. Depending on where you zip tied, go ahead and bring in some ribbon on the opposite opening of your wreath. I brought in a little on my first wreath opening, and now for my second, I'll bring in some ribbon in the middle, making sure the amount I'm bringing in is even to the first. My ribbon loop measures about 4 fingers in width. Now for the third opening of my wreath, I'm grabbing a little more ribbon and inserting through the same way. Once again, making sure the amount of ribbon I'm bringing in through is the same length. Let's do our second row. I'm grabbing a little bit of ribbon, same as before, and starting on my first wreath opening and repeating the process. And of course, making sure it's the same size each time. Now we will put in our second, then we will do our third, and so forth. I have seen some people do a twist in the back after the third ribbon loop, but honestly, I did not see a need for it. I feel this way is simpler, just as effective, and turned out just as beautiful. The first loops might take you a little longer if it's your first time, but as we go along, it gets faster. Although this is a simple wreath once you get the hang of it. Play around with your ribbon until it's the shape and size you want. Then go on to the next ribbon loop. Keep in mind this was my first burlap wreath ever, and I'm actually loving the results, so if I can do it, you can too. And I'm definitely going to be experimenting with more wreaths, ribbons, and I'm excited to share more of these DIYs with you, so make sure to subscribe. I already used up my first 15 feet burlap ribbon, so this will be my second. And I did not show you how I tied up the end of the ribbon. Sorry, my camera died. But I will show you in a bit how to zip tie the end of your burlap. What I'm doing now is the same as I did in the beginning. I'm inserting a zip tie through my ribbon and I'll be tying to one of the wreath wires. And I finally found a wire cutter, so I'm using that instead to cut the end of my zip tie. We will repeat the process and begin in the opening we left off on, then proceed to the opposite opening and continue as we did before. This wreath is not as hard as we thought, huh? Okay, now I can show you how to tie the end of your burlap ribbon. It's practically the same as when you begin. Scrunch it up in fourths, add your zip tie, tie to your wreath, and hide the zip tie so it doesn't scratch the wall or door you'll display on. And I did say you needed 3 15 feet ribbons, but on the third, it's only a little bit. So maybe if you go shorter on your loops, you might be able to get away with 2 15 feet burlap ribbons. I'll just save the burlap ribbon that's left for another fall DIY. This is the end of my wreath, so with some scissors I'll cut a bit off my ribbon and with a zip tie insert through, then zip tie to my wreath. Now for the fun part, adding the final touches to our beautiful fall wreath. I will be gluing 2 pipe cleaners to the back of my wooden owl with my glue gun. This will help to tie him down. Make a little space in between the ribbon and tie down the owl. I found this neutral color mesh tube at Dollar Tree, and I will be using as a subtle accent to our wreath. As you can see, I tied down the first end of the mesh tube and I will be sliding the rest of it through one of the wreath wires. I made 2 loops and I'm tying the second end to another wreath wire and cutting the rest off. I'm doing the same to this other part of the wreath. I'm doing 2 loops at a time, then cutting off the end of the second loop. As I told you guys before, this is my first ribbon wreath, and this little technique I kind of just winged it, but it came out beautiful in the end. And just fluff your burlap or ribbon to cover up your wires and knots. Oh, and I think I forgot to slide the mesh tube through the wire here, so I'm simply tying down with a little pipe cleaner. Now let's make the bow. I'm using a burlap ribbon that's 5.5 inches wide and I'm cutting at 9 inches. I then cut a 10-inch and 8-inch, so I will have 3 pieces of this burlap. I also cut a mesh tube in neutral at 9 inches and a thinner teal ribbon at 9 inches. Scrunch up all your ribbons, and with a zip tie, I tied them all down, leaving a little tiny space so I can slide a pipe cleaner through the back. Fluff your ribbon so it looks nice and fluffy. With some wire cutters, cut your zip tie. I cut a 12-inch teal ribbon and I will glue the ends down with my hot glue gun. And with a little mesh tube, I'll tie the middle down so it looks like a bow. Just cut the excess with some scissors. Now with my hot glue gun, I can glue the bow down to my larger ribbon. Later, I actually regretted not adding some orange mesh tube to make the ribbon pop, so I'm going to be adding some strands to make it more fun. A little hot glue will fix just about any craft. So I added my orange mesh tube and cut off the little excess with my scissors. Okay, I think that's enough pop. Now I will add that pipe cleaner I told y'all about earlier and push it through the back part of the bow. This will make it easier for me to tie to the corner of my wreath. And I had these burlap leaves left over from another DIY which I found at Dollar Tree, and I'm adding to my bow. They have this wire, so I'll just insert through the burlap ribbon. And these sparkly orange leaves I also found at Dollar Tree, and I'm removing 2 leaves, and these will also form part of my bow design. Here, I'm doing the same to the bottom part of the bow. This time, I'm cutting a little bit of the wire from this leaf. You can hot glue the leaf down, I just felt it pretty secure. Honestly, this wreath looked a little intimidating. It kind of reminded me on how sometimes we fill our minds with doubt and fears in life, and in the end, it's actually not as bad as we imagined or played out in our minds. It reminded me of Psalms 94:19. Lord, when doubt fills my mind, when my heart is turmoil, quiet me and give me renewed hope and cheer. Whatever you do today, be hopeful and don't let doubt or fear get the best of you. Stay crafty.